Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of thevikingage.com. We do this every Monday night at 6:15 p.m. and Thursday at noon Central Time right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. And if you miss it, we got you covered in podcast form the next day on Apple and Spotify. But however you listen, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and giving us a good review because we never want you to miss a new episode. My name is Chris Schad. I am a contributor at the Viking Age as well as zone coverage at Bring Me the News. And on your right is my co-host, Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. And we are here to talk about the Minnesota Vikings because all they do is win. They're in first place now, 5-1 of 24-16 victory over the Miami Dolphins. How are you feeling? Like I'm so excited. I can't even spit out words, Adam. I'm telling you right now, I am like Chase Claypool taking a dip during a post-game interview. That is like how high I am on this team right now. How are you feeling?
I feel pretty good. It's a tempered excitement, I would say, because as Vikings fans, we know that this team is capable of ultimate destruction. So I don't want to get too excited.
Destruction.
Chaos.
Even
though they're off to a great start. 5-1 is good. No matter, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 5-1 is a great start, and to have your only loss be against the team who's the only unbeaten team left in the NFL, that's good as well. That being said, they still have plenty to fix and improve on, but so do a lot of teams in the NFC and the NFL right now. But 5-1, yeah, it feels really good. It's much better than what were they 1-5 2 years ago, and like 2-4 or 3-3 a year ago. So I'm not gonna miss that. I feel pretty good about this start.
I think it's interesting to think about those years because it's just like they would get off to a slow start, lose a couple of games, and then be like, okay, get back to 500. Like we were sitting here saying get back to 500 for like 2 straight years. And then finally, they get over 500 on the first week of the season under Kevin O'Connell. They have that hiccup in Philadelphia, and now they seem to be rolling. And Vikings 24, Dolphins 16 on Sunday. It was not pretty early on. Skylar Thompson was moving the ball pretty well, 7-13, 89 yards before he injured his finger. He either broke it or cut it or something, but I'm pretty sure, the Vikings were pretty glad to have him out of the game, however. The Dolphins also had 5 penalties on their second drive of the game, which really bailed out the defense on that. On the other side, the Vikings went 3 and out on their first 4 possessions before going 7 plays, 75 yards on their 5th drive and ending it with an Irv Smith touchdown. So the Vikings went into the locker room with a 10-3 lead, but how concerned were you entering the second half?
I felt better going into the half than I did after the first quarter, because at least in the second quarter, it seemed like they kind of made a few adjustments to their game plan, and it worked out, and they scored on 2 of their final, I believe, 3 possessions in the first half. So I wasn't as worried, but it was probably pretty concerned with all those 3 and outs against a Dolphins defense that hasn't been playing too well this year, especially against the pass. And the Vikings, I don't think Kirk Cousins had he didn't have over 100 yards passing in the first half. I know that. So it seemed like, what's going on? Why are they not able to get people the ball through the air? But it sounded like Kevin O'Connell was saying that like guys just weren't getting open, and it wasn't really a whole lot to do with the play call or Kirk. It was just on the receivers, which was interesting to hear because usually it's not that way. Usually it's something else. But I felt all right when they came out in the second half and they had some more 3 and outs. Then I was like, I don't know about this. But then things started to break their way, and we know what happened at the end.
Yeah, it took them until the fourth quarter to really get going. Yep. Kirk hit that touchdown to Adam Thielen. The Vulcans. Big Star Trek guy, I guess. The Dolphins went right down the field and answered with a Teddy Bridgewater touchdown to Mike Gesicki, and he unleashed one awful gritty. Jonathan Vilma was
bad.
I don't know if he was entertained by it or if like he's
Disturbed.
Just like an overgrown toddler, like just like, hey, look, he killed the gritty, like it's over, it's done, yay! Like,
listen,
all right, dude, we don't need to see it anymore.
As long as Jonathan Vilma wasn't talking about his career, which was basically the whole game, I was fine with him, whatever he was saying, because
Yeah,
everything was. When I was in Miami, when I was on the Saints and we came down here, when I was at the University of Miami, I'm like, this isn't about you. Like,
weird he didn't talk about the 2009 NFC Championship
yeah,
game and
yeah,
what he
right,
did in
right.
that game. But that's just kind of a selective memory. That's CTE for
Yeah,
you, I
yeah, yeah,
guess.
yeah,
Knows the
yeah,
exact date of Thomas Morstead's onside kick, but
yeah, yep,
not when he smashed Brett Favre into the turf.
yeah,
So the Dolphins drive down the field again. It's a one possession game, and Harrison Smith causes a Jalen Waddle fumble.
yeah.
A couple of plays later, Dalvin Cook, who looked absolutely awful throughout
Mm-hmm,
this game,
mm-hmm.
rips off a 53-yard touchdown run. The Vikings give up another touchdown because they are physically incapable of winning a game by more than 2 scores. And here we are, 5-1. So, I mean, let's talk about the win first. Like, is this a game the Vikings wind up losing if Mike Zimmer is still the coach? Because I don't know. There are a lot of things that went wrong. And every time they went wrong, they cut to Kevin O'Connell. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's. I mean, I think Score North put it best. Their motto right now is win no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I said, they are the heel. They are pulling the foreign object out of their
Mm-hmm.
trunks and hiding it or whatever you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think they win this game with Mike Zimmer. I think fingers begin to get pointed in different directions in that game. People start to lose their composure on the sideline. That's the thing. The main thing about this regime and this coaching staff is it just feels like everyone's like pretty cool and calm and collected. Like, okay, we made a mistake, but we're gonna get another chance. Let's not, forget about that. If they score, that's fine. Then we'll go score too. Like, they keep like their focus. Like, you could tell early in the game, Kirk Cousins was frustrated. Like with all the 3 and outs, he was like, I don't remember a time where I've seen Kirk Cousins like that visibly frustrated. And you could see Kevin O'Connell being like, I understand. Like we'll be all right. We'll fix it. We'll look at some things and we'll fix it. And I think that approach has been a big reason for why the Vikings have been able to be 5-1, because instead of, you know, combusting from within and not, hurting their self without even like having these self-inflicted wounds is what the Dolphins did yesterday. That would be the Vikings of years past. But this year's Vikings, they hang around, they keep themselves in the game, they don't make stupid mistakes, they don't have stupid penalties. They keep themselves in the game, and then when they get a break, it works out in their favor, and it's so far so good. But I think with the previous regime, they wouldn't have had the confidence to keep their focus in these games and keep pulling them out at the end, because it's just they were too scared or worried about making mistakes. Where this regime's just like, it's okay, everyone makes mistakes. We still have plenty of time left, and we're gonna win this. So don't worry about it.
Like, even if they won the game with Zimmer as head coach, that plane ride has a different vibe,
He would have
doesn't
been
it?
pissed. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kirk
it's
is not
like
wearing the chains. He's not
no,
wearing
no, the chains aren't even let on the plane.
no.
Like, it's just like, what are you bringing your chain here for?
Yeah,
What is that?
yeah.
Can we talk about that, by the way? Because that is the coolest. Like, I was going to get to this a little bit later. This team seems like they're having fun.
They
Like,
are.
genuinely, honestly, hell, I'll throw it out there. I don't work there anymore. Like, they felt like they were walking into a Quick Trip cooler every morning, like last year. Like, just, an incompetent leader who just kind of hated his own life and was frustrated at everything around him. Not that I'm airing out some grievances right now, but it felt like people were just showing up to work, punching in, punching out,
Mhm.
and going home.
Yep.
Now you have, I mean, and as stupid as the Kirk thing is, I wrote this for zone coverage. This is like a Peyton Manning quality,
Yeah.
like Kirk Cousins is showing, because not only
Eli
he's a
too.
he's a very cerebral quarterback on the field, and he's very
Yep.
serious. Like,
Yep.
when you saw it on that drive and Kirk came off the field because
Mhm.
Justin Jefferson ran the wrong route, he was pissed. He
Mhm.
was about ready to like kill Justin Jefferson, and Kevin O'Connell went and calmed him down. But like, I mean, Peyton Manning, the people mention this all the time. He broke Cody Lattimore because he was
Mhm.
so like intense and just demanded perfection. I feel like Kirk is the same way. He
Yeah.
doesn't get that all the time, but I think the other quality that the Mannings have, and kind of why they're so endearing, is that they know who they are. Like, they can make fun of themselves. Like, Kirk goes up to the press conference podium last year, and he's answering questions like he's in a witness interrogation room, and Mike Zimmer's on the other side of the glass, like, just charging out, like, what did you say about my defense? And, like, I mean, now, like, Kirk is just like, he goes on Pardon My Take, and he says, yeah, I know I'm not cool. Like, he's like, I got a ton of money, but I'm not, I'm swimming in Cole's cash, Then he's talking about, he's wearing the chain, or he's talking about how the chain is empowering and like everything else. And like, that's how like Eli and Peyton got their own spinoff on Monday Night Football. Peyton, he loved to guzzle like beer and, just make fun of himself. Eli, he went to a bar and played tip cup with Daniel Jones and matching polos. Like, it's freaking hilarious, and it's almost endearing. Like, I mean, it's a lot different when you're 5-1 with him than like 1-5, like you were a couple years ago. But I mean, Kirk is starting to make himself likable, and I think his teammates, after 4 years in Minnesota, are finally starting to hitch their wagons to him, and I think it's huge for this team.
Yeah, I wrote about it too yesterday on the Vikings, that Kirk is just feels like he's coming out of his shell, more so the last few weeks with just putting the chains on, having a little fun with the younger guys, because he's one of the older guys in the locker room, so he's he's not in touch with all the younger guys, but he's trying to have fun. He knows this is a game. Winning does help. Let's not forget about that. Winning games does help, and it's a lot more easy to have fun when you're winning. So that's been helpful. But yeah, that's just like I mentioned before, like this whole, mentality of like, let's chill out. Like, we'll figure this out. If we make mistakes, so what? We'll figure it out. And I think just that freeness has also played a part in them winning as well, because they feel like they're, they can be themselves on the field. They're not restricted. They can just do a bunch of dances like the defense did after the Pat Peterson interception yesterday, when they did like 7 different dances, and I don't think that happens under Mike Zimmer. I know they did some similar things last year, but I don't think they're not having as much fun if Zimmer's the coach still. And that's nothing against Zimmer. It's just his style. It's more of an in your face, brash, stick to the book. Like, that's not, we're not here to make friends. Yeah, we're not here to make friends. We're not here to laugh. We're here to play football and win games. He said in his very last press conference, I don't care about stats. I care about winning. And, I feel like Kevin O'Connell probably feels very similarly. But he's also, he realizes this is a kid's game. These guys they're dancing after they score touchdowns. They're doing signals after their first down signs after they get a first down. They're having fun. And I think it's shown a lot in their play. And I think it'll help them later on in the season, because 1, they've already shown they can win close games, and 2, that this having all this fun like builds, it makes the team closer, and you're more, your team is better. I feel like as a whole, like the defense and the offense, you notice that like the defense and the offense are having fun together. Like typically in the Zimmer era, it's like defense over here, offense over here, like. Now everyone's mixed up. Like Zadarius Smith's hanging with Cousins and stuff, and like they're all over the place. So I think it's a good time to be on the Vikings, and the first year of the Kevin O'Connell era is going very well, I would say.
Oh, that was weird.
You're right.
I am not built for live
choked
YouTube. I don't know, choked up just with how this team is just bonding. I wonder if like Kevin O'Connell's first thing was to be like, all right, offense over here, defense over here. See this guy? I want you to go and just have a conversation with him. Like, I mean, it seems kind of weird. And I mean, I'm kind of half joking, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, everybody kind of mingles with everybody. You feel like this is a team rather than a whole bunch of pieces pulling opposite directions like it was last year. But I also would acknowledge that this is a team that has a lot to work on. We're going into the bye week. Tyler Fornes tweeted out yesterday, friend of the show, by the way, that the Vikings are on pace for more 3-and-outs than they had last year, which is staggering considering they led the NFL in 3-and-outs. I believe they had 10 of them on Sunday, which is great if you're Sean Spears, but not an NFL football team. The players are still running the wrong routes. I'm looking at you, Justin Jefferson, although he's getting his yardage. Like there's a lot of mistakes right now. And nobody outside of Jefferson can seem to get involved. Adam Thielen has 284 yards and 2 touchdowns in 6 games. KJ Osborne, 19 catches, 177 yards and a touchdown. Irv Smith Jr. jumped off the milk carton to catch a touchdown yesterday, but he's been basically non-existent. And there was another play where Kirk went to the line. They were going up tempo and he's calling a play and everybody looks at him like he's speaking Spanish or something. Like, I think the Vikings need to go into this bye week. And the first thing they need to do is simplify the offense so people can understand it. Because I think, it's okay for people to need an adjustment period over the offseason. Like when Adam Thielen's saying my head is swimming in June, you go, okay, there's plenty of time to figure it out. When you're 6 games in, it's time to figure it out. Because right now, this is not an efficient offense. This is an offense that I almost don't want to use the L word. Like they are getting a little bit lucky with big plays, but I mean, that's been the case of their offense. They just get a huge play here and a huge play there. And eventually it's like playing with fire. Eventually you're going to get burned like they did in Philadelphia because they had 3 and outs. Their defense got torched. And we saw what happened when Kirk Cousins had to play from behind in that game.
Yeah, I feel like their offensive approach is kind of similar to their defensive approach where they're waiting they're waiting for the defense to kind of just make hit a breaking point where like they make a mistake. They have like yesterday in that big Justin Jefferson a long pass. The Dolphins had like their base defense on the field and the Vikings had 3 receivers. So they're like, okay, here we go. We can, get Justin Jefferson on a wheel route, get him wide open. And they struck big. And I think that's kind of similar. That's where most of their success has come this year, just feeding off of the mistakes of the defense, which is a lot of, good plays in the NFL do that. But I feel like that's kind of been their only success this year. And I think Kevin O'Connell talked before the season, like we're going to dictate, our success. It's not going to be the defense, stopping us or whatever. We're going to be the ones to like make the plays and decide, how much yards we gain. But it hasn't really been that way. It's been the running game hasn't been that great. The screen game hasn't been that great. The deep ball game hasn't really been that great. Like there's been a lot of good success of like the intermediate crossing routes, which is basically just every team in the NFL this year. It feels like every team is playing 2 deep safety and just letting all the underneath routes happen. Maybe they are. But yeah, I think simplifying would be good. They have enough tape. I feel like they've had enough games where they can look back and be like, this is what we're good at. And we should try and focus on doing more of this and giving teams different looks, but we'll still do similar things. And I think by just exploiting some things that they're good at will help them in the long run for the future. But I'm still kind of curious what they're going to do about the running game because I don't know about Dalvin Cook. Yesterday, if he didn't have that big run, he would have had like less than 20 rushing yards yesterday.
Yeah, I think he had 10 carries for 24 yards before that carry.
Yeah, so they gotta. And I've seen some people be like, he needs more opportunities. I'm like, but he shouldn't. If the Vikings
are break him if you give him more opportunities.
If the Vikings are passing well, then he should have plenty of opportunities to, run around because they're gonna think that the Vikings are still gonna pass. I think the big difference is CJ Ham is not. He's really not involved in this offense. Like he had like a season high snaps, whatever yesterday or whatever, but he was a big factor in Dalvin Cook's success with the Vikings, and I think him not being out there a lot has played a big part in Dalvin Cook kind of slowing down a little bit this year. It could be, things could change, but it's a little bit concerning because the Vikings are paying Dalvin Cook a good amount of money. So,
yeah, I mean, he's got what is it a $13 million cap hit next year?
It's up there. It's a 14,
yeah,
13.
It's a lot for a running back. It's kind of like feeding a gremlin after midnight when you extend him to a contract like that. On the other side of the ball, the defense, there's a lot of questions there. But I have a good question to start off with because I think this is a very positive development. The pass rush. It showed up on Sunday, and it showed up in a big way. Now, I believe there are some injuries along the offensive line for the Dolphins, so that helped them out a little bit. But, I mean, who cares? Zadarius Smith, 11 pressures and 2 sacks. on the afternoon. Danielle Hunter, I talked about Irv Smith jumping off the milk carton. Danielle Hunter was like, you can do that? He jumped off, had 6 pressures and a sack. Patrick Jones had 2 sacks.
The sequel.
The sequel. Is that his nickname?
It should be.
It definitely should be. I like it.
He's got the 2 in there.
And the sequel. I like it. I might have to steal that.
Patrick Jones is boring. Just Patrick Jones? Come on.
He's Patrick Jones the second.
Yeah. Okay.
But so let's ask you a point blank. Did they fix the pass rush on Sunday, or were they just kind of lucky?
I wouldn't say it's luck. I think they have a good pass rush this year. I think they took advantage of a very weak Dolphins pass blocking unit. I just looked, and the Dolphins rank dead last in pass blocking grade in the NFL by PFF. So the Vikings, I think they had around 32 pressures yesterday. That's a lot still.
Jeez.
No matter how how bad the team you're going against, like you're still going against NFL offensive line. 32 pressures is a lot. Zadarius Smith, I think he had 11 and 2 sacks. So they did good. They did what they had to. I think part of that's happened when Teddy got in there, because we know that Teddy Bridgewater he likes to look down. Like I think Danielle Hunter mentioned this after the game. Like Teddy likes to look downfield, so he's gonna hold the ball a little longer than maybe the Skylar Thompson would have.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna get more shots to get after Teddy, and they did. I think they sacked him 5 times. So the pass rush, regardless of who they were going against, it's a strength of theirs. But you can see that if someone like Zadarius Smith or Danielle Hunter gets hurt, like, okay, Patrick Jones looked good yesterday, but can he do it again? I think he should get more playing time. He's looked good in his limited snaps this year. I'm not so sure about DJ Wanham. Like, he was out on Sunday, and I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Like, I think the Vikings are fine if he doesn't. I've never really been impressed by DJ Wanham, but he's playing kind of good this year, so maybe he's doing better. But I think the pass rush is good. They were really good yesterday, but they should have been. So,
yeah. I will say this. I think they found depth yesterday by accident.
Yeah.
Because we kind of jump on Waterman a little bit. I think he's been playing okay. I mean, we need to lower expectations for DJ Wanham, because Andre Patterson came in like, this is the next Danielle Hunter. And even he's probably like, no, I'm not. Like, I mean, I would love to be, but probably not. And I think he's been a fine rotational guy. I think Patrick Jones showed he can play. He can be a functional guy. Like, that's the type of thing you didn't see under Mike Zimmer, where a lot of the guys on the bench were on the bench permanently. And now you're seeing guys like Patrick Jones ready when the opportunity strikes. I think it was last week we talked about the different guy every game steps up and makes the big play. And we'll talk about that even a little bit more later. But I think they're starting to find guys that can get to the quarterback, and it's really becoming beneficial. If you don't mind, let's look at the back end of the defense, though. And I think that's been driving people mad, but I think it's what they are at this point. Like, and I talked about the lack of speed on this defense on the Homer Horn. I might have even said it here, but you're running with 4-6 corners in Shandon Sullivan, Cameron Dantzler, Patrick Peterson, probably a little bit over 4-5 now. Like, this is not a fast defense. And the best way to do that is to play back in coverage and keep the play in front of you. I was wondering about this myself. Like, a couple of years ago, we were kind of upset with Zimmer because he said, my offense is 4th in total yardage. And we're like, yeah, but you're 12th in points. Like, this team right now is 4th in the NFL in yards allowed. Like, it's pretty rough, but they're only 12th in points allowed. And, it's kind of like effing around and finding out, right? That gap's eventually going to close at some point. But for right now, it's basically like, hey, if you're not giving up points, like, screw it. Like, do this. Like, if you're going to bend but don't break, I mean, it's sure as hell bending. But, I mean, I mean, if that's your plan, it seems to be working.
Yeah, I just looked. I don't even think I realized that Tyreek Hill had 177 yards receiving yesterday. Like, it didn't feel like it, but he clearly did.
Like, even Waddle had like 110, and he got like 60 on his last catch before he got hurt or whatever. But
Oh yeah, what Jordan Hicks pounded him in the ground. I knew he
The one
was
thing Jordan Hicks did yesterday, yeah.
immediately hurt as soon as he hit the ground because he like just drove him in the ground. Um, yeah, this is what they are. They don't want to give up the big plays. They want to keep you in front of them. They want to they want they kind of want to get in this short field. I feel like they would rather have the defense. They feel more comfortable like inside their own 30 than they do, the other team starting at their own 25 or whatever because there's less room for the offense to work. Things are more restricted. They can't go deep down the field. Um, but I think this is what they want. Yesterday was kind of ideal in the fact that the pass rush did well. They didn't give up really any really big plays, and if they did, they uh, ended them with a turnover. They got what, 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers yesterday. They
Yeah.
rank they rank where is it? Oh, 5th in the NFL right now in turnovers forced. They've forced 10 already this year. Um, so I mean that's the game plan. Like just don't let them get easy scores because the more, the other teams are getting these chunk yards or whatever, like little by little by little. But these are also opportunities for the defense to get turnovers. Like they're getting more chances to get these turnovers. Like there was a play yesterday where Teddy was running towards the end zone and Zadarius Smith was like chasing him down. And I think Vilma was thinking about it. He spoke about it too. Where like that was like a perfect opportunity for Zadarius Smith to just like slap the ball out of Teddy's hand, but he didn't do that. He just tackled him. But like they're just getting more opportunities to get the ball. I know it doesn't sound as good. We're used to Zimmer's defense just stopping everyone 3 and outs all the time, but like this is how it is. Like that doesn't happen really anymore. Like, and if it does, it doesn't happen with a brand new Vikings defense with a brand new defensive coordinator with new group of players. Like that happens. That happens with the Bills. And guess what? The Bills gave up more points yesterday than the Vikings. They're also playing 2 totally different teams. Uh, the Bills are
Yeah.
playing the Chiefs in Arrowhead, so that's much different. But yeah, the Vikings gave up what 16 points to the Dolphins
Right.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, to me, like, and Teddy threw for over 300. Tyreek had over 170 yards receiving. Like, they had the numbers to put up, more points, but the Vikings got the turnovers, and that was the difference in the end. And that's right now, that's what they need to do. There's other stuff they can fix, but right now, they're doing what they're good at, which is forcing turnovers and getting to the quarterback. So,
I
you know,
think it gets back to that theme I was talking about a little bit, which is making the big play. Like the interception by Harrison Smith before halftime, like that was kind of crazy. Might not have been an interception as I was watching, but they ruled interception on the field, and I'm like,
I think
okay,
it
that
was.
that never happens, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, Eric Hendricks was telling everybody after the game that he definitely got his hands under it. And if you ask Drew Pearson if he pushed off in the 1975 divisional playoff, he's going to tell you the same. I
I
didn't
think
push
it
off. What are you
I think
talking
it
about?
helps that they called an interception. If it was called incomplete,
Yes, that was key.
then yeah, but they called it an interception. That helps because there wasn't enough evidence to like sway it one way or the other. So basically, whatever they called it was probably going to stand because it just you
Looks
couldn't.
like an interception to me when you look
Yeah,
at it. The fumble recovery by Smith, that was another one. I think there was another fumble in the game. Like this reminds me of like the
the
Chicago
Waddle
Bears
fumble, right?
horseshoe. Yeah. Yeah. This reminds me of the Chicago Bears horseshoe years. Where like
Yes.
when I was growing up with like Urlacher and Peanut Tillman and Briggs and all those guys, like they would just have these pop-up years where like everything would go their way.
Yep.
Like Hail Marys, double doinks,
Yep.
second interception returns, quarterbacks making dumb plays. Like what's going on? Like that's what this feels like. And
Mhm.
I guess if we're going to list a concern going into the second half, what happens when they play a better team? Because when they played Philadelphia, it didn't look good. Like, is Green Bay a good team? They
In the
sure as
first,
hell don't look like it right now.
no, no, no. In the first half, it didn't look good for the Eagles. The second half, they didn't score any points. Now, is that
Yeah,
because the Vikings played better defense, or is that because the Eagles were like, we don't really need to do a whole lot?
they're done playing with their food.
Yeah, but yeah, and we forgot to mention the Patrick Peterson interception too. That was the other turnover that they had yesterday. So they had 3 turnovers. Um, but yeah, when they play the Bills, I'm very curious. Like even when they play the Cardinals when they come back, that's their first game. The Cardinals, they're terrible right now. They're 2-4. They couldn't score any points on the Seahawks yesterday. And the Seahawks have not their defense is not good. They haven't been stopping anybody this year, but they couldn't score anything. But now they get DeAndre Hopkins back. They just traded for Robbie Anderson. Don't ask me why. It sounds
Why
like
would you want Robbie Anderson at this point?
after
Like,
yesterday.
I'm sorry.
After yesterday,
Screw yesterday. Go back a couple of days. You posted the video and it looked like his dog had died because they fired Matt Rule. Like they're just like, what do you think? He's like people are playing ping pong in the background and like,
oh yeah.
I don't know. Like that's a guy I don't want anywhere near my locker room right now. Like
I said the ping pong thing.
Team.
I said the ping pong thing because I was just making fun of everyone making a big deal about the Dolphins.
Oh, the Dolphins
getting rid of theirs. I'm like, you can tell they're not serious because they're playing ping pong, and everyone thought I was being serious, which I was not. But yeah, Robbie Anderson. Like, of course, the Cardinals would trade for a wide receiver because that's just all they apparently seem to do.
They're a dumpster fire right now.
They just lost their left guard, and then like, let's trade for a receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty comes out this week, so things are about to get worse.
And they just signed Cliff and their GM to 4-year extensions before the season. They just signed Kyler to a big extension. Like, it's not looking good.
Way
over
to
there.
go. Yeah.
but at the same time, they're a very good road team. I think that game against the Vikings is going to be a lot tougher than Vikings fans realize. Right now, it looks like it's going to be easy. One thing we've noticed about anything related to the Vikings this year, nothing is coming easy. All these games are one-score games again. That has to do a lot with them having the same, basically, personnel. But they're getting wins in these games. But, I don't know. I'm curious to see how they play against the Cardinals because the Cardinals will have Hopkins back. Robbie Anderson can stretch the field. Zach Ertz is a good weapon as well. Even AJ Green, he can maybe do some things. Hasn't really done much this year, but he can still get behind the defense. So I'm curious. I think that's going to be interesting to watch. But then, yeah, of course, when they play the Bills, that'll be big to see if they can stop. What's that guy's name? He went to Maryland. Stephon Diggs. Oh yeah, he's playing pretty good this year.
Horrible human that must be stopped, right?
And Gabe Davis too, apparently, who's he can do more than just score at Arrowhead, even though he scored there yesterday. But yeah, a lot of big tests for the Vikings coming up. Even I'm not going to say the Giants. The Giants are going to be a tough game now, but I'm not going to be like, let's worry about their receivers because I couldn't name you a receiver that's on the Giants right now. Okay, Wan'Dale Robinson. That's about it.
And he's like 5'6" and 160 pounds, soaking wet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the Vikings because by definition right now, they are NFC contenders. They have a record of 5-1. The NFC playoff picture looks like this. The Eagles, they're in first. They're the last undefeated team in the NFL right now. They are 6-0. The Vikings are in the second seed. They are at 5-1. The Bucks are 3-3 as the division leader. They have the 3 seed. The 49ers are 3-3. They are the 4 seed. The Giants are the first wild card spot at 5-1, the 5 seed. Cowboys are the 6th seed at 4-2, and the Rams are 3-3. And just because I want to mention it, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are 3-3, probably because he's on drugs right now.
They're from a plant, though. They're from a plant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He probably designed those crucial catch hats that they're wearing on the sideline.
They're from a plant that he got from outside of the U.S., so it's not illegal, okay?
Yeah. Just hey man, like we're just 2 lost souls living in a fishbowl year after year, man.
Hey, but
I'll trade you this shirt off my grad for some grilled cheese.
He said,
I think cheese last night, but
speaking of Rodgers, after that game they lost the Jets where they got clobbered or whatever, he talked about after the game how they need to simplify everything for the receivers, for the tight ends, for the offensive line, for the running backs. Didn't name himself.
Yeah, it's not his fault. Great leadership.
Great.
So what's it going to take for you to be convinced that the Vikings aren't counterfeit pretenders, though? All right, contenders. Jeez.
I mean, look at the rest of the NFC. Who, other than the Eagles, who's better than them?
Does anybody scare you? I mean, I
No,
I don't want to play Tom Brady in the playoffs. That's for damn sure. But I mean,
no.
outside of that,
Like, sure,
like,
these teams are gonna get better as the year goes along. Maybe they won't. But right now, you look at some of the teams. The Packers just got lost by 17 points to the Jets. Jets are better. I'll give them that. The Niners, who we thought were going to be better with Garoppolo, just lost by 14 to the Falcons.
mhm.
Um, the Giants won. They're kind of in the Vikings boat where it's like they're 5-1, but how are they 5-1? The Bucks just lost to the Steelers, who had one win before yesterday. The Rams just they beat the Panthers by 14, but it was a struggle for the most part. And then the Eagles and Cowboys. The Cowboys are a team that I think will be better because Dak Prescott's coming back, and their defense is really good with Anthony Barr in there,
Mhm.
and Jaron Curse. Um, but other than let's see, the Eagles and Cowboys. Even the Cowboys, I'm not worried about the Cowboys with Mike McCarthy as the coach. Come on,
You mean Patrick?
no, Mike.
He reminds me of Patrick from
Oh,
SpongeBob,
okay,
honestly.
okay, okay. I was like, "No, I got his name
Like,
right."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, people are like, "Are the Vikings, like, are they legit contenders?" And I'm like, "Look at the rest of the NFC. Who is besides the Eagles?" Like, would it surprise you if any of the teams that are in contention right now miss the playoffs? And then would it surprise you if any of the teams that are, like, 3-3 or 2-4 made the playoffs? Because there's no real team that's dominant, and that's pretty clear. Like, the AFC, there's the Bills and the Chiefs. And I think the Ravens will make the playoffs. They've just been struggling a little bit, but they've been struggling against good teams. Um, but yeah, like, why would I not think the Vikings they're 5-1. Like, last time they started 5-1, they finished 8-8.
Yeah.
This is not the 2016 Vikings with Sam Bradford and a demolished offensive line and people just dropping like flies. For one, the health of this Vikings team is so much better than it has been in the last few years, and I think that's a lot to do with their approach, their new training staff, and all that stuff. So I think the Vikings are in much better shape than they were the last time they were 5-1. So, and they have to win what 5 games maybe to get in the playoffs as a wild card. They
Yeah.
shouldn't. They should be going for the division, which is possible, but they need to win 5 games. For 5 out of their next 11 games, they need to win. They can do that. They can do that.
I have two possible outcomes that I've thought of, like two teams that this could remind me of. And 2016 isn't one of them. They could be like the 2019 team.
Mhm.
And they started 6-2. They made the playoffs, but they had their moments where you knew they weren't good enough to win a title, right? They
Yep.
lost to Chase Daniel. They lost to Matt Moore, losing at home to the Packers on Monday Night Football. They needed a 21-point comeback to come back against a bad Denver team. And
Yep.
sure enough, they beat the Saints, but then they lost the 49ers. And once the season ended, like big changes happened. Stephon Diggs was gone. Linval Joseph was gone. Xavier Rhodes was gone. Everson Griffin, they were all gone, right? I could see that happening with this team where, maybe they get in the playoffs, maybe they even win their division, but they get bounced in the first round by, one of the NFC East teams. And we're just kind of sitting there
Yep.
going like, what happened? I can also see this being like 2017. And that was a year where everything, like the heavens parted for the Vikings to get to the Super Bowl, right?
Mhm.
They didn't take advantage, but it, things were going their way. And
Mhm.
they did not look good in the early part of the season. Like,
Mm-mm.
I think it's easy to remember. Like, they throttled the Saints, but then they
Mhm.
went to Pittsburgh and they didn't look very good against the Steelers.
Nope.
They came home, they throttled Tampa Bay,
They
and then
lose
they
the
lost
Lions?
the Lions.
Yeah.
That was the game Dalvin Cook tore his ACL.
Yep.
So then you have Case Keenum stepping in, and they just rattle off 8 straight wins. It was that Chicago game. Sam Bradford tried to come back. His knee was like disintegrating into
Oh, yep.
dust. So they
Yep.
put Keenum in.
Yep.
They win the Chicago game, and they just rattle off 8 straight wins. And like throughout that streak, there are just so many big moments. Like Anthony Barr stepped up for a couple of games. Like he crunched Aaron Rodgers' collarbone, and then he had a big game the following week against the Ravens. Anthony Harris stripping Cooper Kupp at the goal
Mhm.
line in
Mhm.
that game against the Rams. You had Xavier Rhodes shutting down Julio Jones when he was at the height of his powers with the
Mhm.
Falcons. It was just a different player stepping up every week. And we talked about this. And I think that when you look at the Vikings schedule, it looks pretty tough, but there are a lot of tests, which if they keep getting wins and just finding a way to win, like that's going to inspire some confidence because you talked about Arizona and Washington. I am not afraid. I am not afraid of Kyler Murray. I think he's more obsessed with playing video games than he is playing quarterback. And with Call of Duty coming out next weekend, I don't know. We'll see what I think. Doesn't they play on Thursday night this week, right?
Mm-hmm. They play the Saints.
Cardinals. So I'm not sure when Call of Duty actually comes out, like the exact date, but I can't play it. I get sick. Like I feel like such a I feel like a weakling because I can't play it, but it's just like flipping around and everything else, and like
you feel like a Troy Aikman you feel like a Troy Aikman comment.
Yeah, something like that.
I think Kyler gets a bad rep. I'll say this because he's good. He's really good.
He is. I'm not against him.
He doesn't have anyone to work with, and his coach is terrible. So like if let's say Mike McDaniel went to the Cardinals, they would be so good. Like that's part of the reason I feel like the Dolphins offense was good yesterday. Like people were like, "Oh, that Skylar Thompson was pretty good." I'm like, he was good because his coach was putting him in position to be good, and he's like, "This is where the Vikings have holes. Throw it there." Like not every coach does that, unfortunately, but like get Kyler a better coach, some actual weapons, some protection, and then tell me, how bad or good he is because I think he's good. He's still really young. Okay, maybe he plays too much video games. Whatever, that's good. But I'm a fan of Kyler. I think he gets a bad rep because he's the quarterback. So like we put all the pressure on Kirk Cousins. He's going to get the pressure too.
Okay, so.
But I'm not worried about them either. I'll say that.
Yes,
I'm not worried about them.
There's still 2 games they should win. That's the point I'm trying to make here. But I mean, if you win those 2 games, go to Buffalo and don't embarrass yourself. Yeah. Like that should be a thing. And like Philly game is basically what not to do when you play the Bills. Like if you win, awesome. If you lose, just don't look like a train wreck.
Yeah.
And then, you have a couple of tests and they're all at home. You have a home game against Dallas. You have a home game against New England on Thanksgiving. You have a home game against the Jets, who look pretty good. You have a home game against the Giants that look pretty good. And then you have 2 NFC North games at the end of the year on the road at Green Bay and Chicago. And who knows if they'll matter because Green Bay looks pretty rough and Chicago is just a dumpster fire. So if you win the games you're supposed to, Arizona, Washington, at Detroit, Indianapolis, and Chicago, I would say. Indianapolis is a little tougher than I'm getting them credit, but I mean, I'm just not sold on them. If you go 3-2 in those games that I mentioned and win the ones before, you're a 13-win team. Like that's all you have to do. And it, like we kind of said at the top of the show, this is exciting. Like we haven't felt like an upside with this team because it's like, well, we hope we make the playoffs and get on a run and whatever. Like they could get the 2 seed, they could get a home playoff game, and if they get the 2 seed and they win the first one, they get another home playoff.
Go for the one.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like Eagles, it's within reach.
Eagles are not going to be unbeaten. I'm sorry, they're going to have a slip up. They almost had one last night against Cowboys, even though they were up by a lot. But I think the difference between Vikings of teams of years past and this team is like we're so used to like, okay, when are the Vikings going to screw up? Why do they have to screw up? Why can't this new regime, this new version of the team just be like, okay, we're going to go in, we're the better team, we're going to win? Why we're still stuck in that mentality of like, okay, here's where they're going to have the hiccup. I don't know about this team. They kind of have like a receiver who could be decent against them and like have his biggest game of the year against the Vikings. Like we got to stop that. Like the Vikings, they're good. All the teams that are on their schedule, they're looking at the Vikings like, oh, that's one of our toughest games left on our schedule. So we have to get in that mentality too. Like this Vikings team is good and they're going to win a bunch more games this year, barring serious injuries to other players, but they're good. And I think they're going to do well to get in the playoffs. I think they will get the 2 seed at the very least in the playoffs. And if they get the 1, that would be great. But I think the 2 is probably the more realistic scenario of the 2. But they're good. They're a good team, and everyone around the NFL knows they are too. So I think we gotta start realizing that too, and not just be stuck in like, when are they gonna screw up? They're good.
they could very well screw up, but I'll deal with it when it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of it. Enjoy where we are at right now.
Yeah.
Enjoy the season,
Enjoy
as
the
Mike
ride.
Tice once said. Yeah. But yeah, that's all the time we have for the Viking Age tonight. We do this every Monday and Thursday night at 6:15 p.m. Central Time right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. And like, comment, share, subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And if we do, we are not, you are on Spotify. Oh my, I need to eat something. We are on Apple, Spotify, and you can check us out on podcast form there. I'm Chris Schad. He's Adam Patrick, and we'll talk to you on Thursday night.
Go Padres.